Hey, this is Mark A. Altman.
And this is Darren Doctorman.
And this is Ashley Miller.
And we are the inglorious
Treksperts.
Treksperts.
And welcome to FRYE Fest. We're sitting down with none other than Fry himself, also Captain Harriman, ALAN RUCK. You don't
Well,
want to miss this one, boys and girls.
His name is Cameron Fry. So
Yeah.
Fry's his last name.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It just sounded like you didn't. That's
No,
all.
I know.
We're
I've
just
seen the
making
movie
sure.
I know.
a few hundred times. It's okay.
What makes you think I wouldn't know? I know.
I would know. I know that.
Wow, it's a good pun, FRYE Fest. It doesn't matter if it's his first or his last name.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just a name, like
Yeah.
any other.
So you know, if they say Bueller, you know it's his last name. It's not his first name. Say Ferris.
What about the
that's
trouble with Harriman?
the trouble with Harriman? Well, that's a long
Tuesday.
episode that I intended.
Maybe we should release this episode on
on
a
Tuesday.
That's
That's funny.
pretty
Maybe
funny.
we will. Maybe this episode will drop on a Tuesday
That's hilarious.
when the moon is out.
Right.
It could be a Fizbin slash Harriman episode. So speaking of this episode, I got to warn you though. This is our fantastic conversation with ALAN RUCK at Galaxycon. But apparently, I guess one of our listeners accused us of having jumped the shark. This podcast, the Inglorious Treksperts, have jumped the shark because apparently all we do is plug our many convention appearances. And he doesn't feel that he said, you better up your game for the 60th anniversary because apparently we have jumped the shark.
Well,
I don't
Luckily,
remember
we
even
have-
eating the shark.
luckily we have the shark repellent.
That's right. Wow, there's like a callback to a totally different episode.
Now, I gotta say, you could accuse us of having jumped the shark, but not for using convention panels because the convention panels are really interesting. Not only
Yeah.
that, they make it a lot easier that we don't have to record episodes like every freaking week. So if you
That's
want
right.
a show 52 weeks a year,
Yeah.
with really great,
Show me another podcast that gives you an episode every week.
For
So you'll
7
take it.
years.
so you'll take it and like it.
That's right.
No, I mean,
You
I think
ingrates.
I actually think it would be disappointing for our listeners if we didn't share these interviews that we did. If it was only the 500,000 people in the room who get to hear it. I think we're doing a
mitzvah.
A mitzvah. Thank you very much. Very good. See, then now for the Treksperts drinking game, didn't that other guy say every time Mark uses a Yiddish word to take a drink? What happens when Ashley uses a Yiddish word? You got to
Yeah.
drink the whole bottle.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Everybody
How
wins.
about that? Yeah, this is true.
I'm getting tsuras.
Oh man, look at that! How about that? I think you can tell it's a very Passover-y. We just finished Passover, Easter last week, so a lot of celebrating the holidays and everything. A lot of celebrating there. But I guess we're celebrating this podcast, jumping the shark as well.
That's right.
Plus, I wouldn't use the expression "jumping the shark." That's a Happy Days reference.
Yeah.
We would need something.
We would need to
Trek-
interview Ted McGinley.
Yeah. To jump the shark, here's what we'd actually need to do. Because classically, kids, as we all know here, jumping the shark is a reference to Happy Days when Fonzie, ski jumped over a bunch of sharks. But what you have to understand the predicate of that episode, which was Fonzie, like in a fairly cool episode, jumping a bunch of cars on his motorcycle because Fonzie on his motorcycle
Is
jumping cars is cool. And they said, let's do it again. So for us to jump the shark, what we would need to do is, and I don't even know who the guests would be, but we would have to try to do like
The Port
the
Tower, we
Kevin
jump the Port
Feige,
Tower.
Steve Asbell, like Terry Matalas, Star Trek 3 debate again, like, but with like slightly like off topic, much worse guests, but pretend like it's as good as that. Like, that's how you know we've jumped the shark.
Well, in fact, we've turned down people who want to do the Star Trek 3 episode again. Ron Moore and Mark Guggenheim wanted to do it, and we said, no, we already did that show. Come up
Sorry,
with something
guys.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah, come up with something else. So we can't repeat ourselves. Unless
we
we're talking
can,
about the
but-
survivors and the Omega Glory. Then we can repeat ourselves a few thousand times.
That's right. Have you guys heard about the survivors? Rob Burnett loves that episode. And you
Have
want to
you
know
heard
why?
that?
Because Kevin Uxbridge.
I heard that
Stop me
story,
if
and I
you've
ain't
heard
no
this one.
band leader.
He kills all of us, Mac. Everywhere.
Oh my God. Speaking of, I got to tell you, I'm worried about X06 with the tariffs. I don't know how I'm going to get, now that they finally got to the TOS figures.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm really worried. I think what's going to be like Prohibition, they're going to have to like deliver them to like Mexico or Canada, and then somebody's going to have to smuggle them into the U.S. so we can get our X06 TOS figures. I mean, they're just about to come out with Garrick and like all the Star Trek 2, McCoy and Star Trek 2, and a whole bunch of the original cast, and Gorn, which looked amazing.
I just want the Gorn. That's the only one I want.
The Gorn looks sensational.
Yeah.
Like I wonder if
X06
we,
is a thing I've always
maybe
wanted
we
to
could
try to
just
collect,
arrange to send. We send Rob with a suitcase. He can fly somewhere.
He can be our
outside the
mule.
United States. He can be our mule, but instead of a
I
drug
carry
mule,
this uncomfortable Gorn in my ass. 3
he
years,
can put
Butch.
it in a suitcase. Nothing to declare. Nothing. I declare. Nothing to declare.
You
Because
have
Rob
something
can
to
talk
declare?
himself.
Yes, I'm a huge Star Trek fan.
Rob can talk himself out anywhere. So he'll just come back with a suitcase full of X06 action figures that he
And a
picked up in
homeless
China.
person.
And a homeless person. Oh my God.
Who is the
Okay.
actual mule? He'll cut him open.
Should we
and
call
take the
Rob and
figures.
find out if he'll do this? And then we'll call Nanjin Tam and find out if we can work this out? No?
Let's not talk about doing that. Let's just do it.
It's one
admit it.
it's one
Yeah,
plane
that-
ticket.
Yeah, just like let's just not, in advance of the federal crime,
Yeah.
talk about committing.
Rob, you're going to China. What?
China is here. I don't even know what that means.
I mean, what the hell does that mean?
Oh my God. Okay, well, we're gonna have to work on this plan apparently to get our Star Trek action figures. It's gonna be like Ocean's 11. This could be the sequel to Free Enterprise. It's gonna be like our version of Ocean's 11. This whole caper.
And what'll this do to us watching Big Trouble in Little China? That's my question.
Yeah. Well, we won't be able to watch it in Little China. We'll just have to watch it elsewhere.
In Big China.
Big China.
I love that James Hong. He's just the greatest.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
He's great in that. But
Well-
we're watching Seinfeld every night now.
Yeah.
And the
Cartwright?
Chinese restaurant. Yep, Chinese restaurant came on again, and it's like, oh, he's so good in that. Yeah, Cartwright.
Yeah.
Cartwright before. Oh my gosh. Oh, I don't understand how Friends became the more popular show than Seinfeld. It's like not
Because
even
of
close.
kids.
Because those kids, those
Those
Gen
darn
Z.
kids.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, I got to tell you something. So
Yeah?
Isaac and I went to go see Bonnie and Clyde at the American Cinematheque last
Yep.
week.
Uh-huh.
Great 4K DCP. So it's a half empty theater. It's fairly well done. When we get in, we're like we weren't sure, so we got there early. So not many people in the theater. We have these seats we like on the side on the aisle, right?
Okay.
There's no one else. Some freaking guy, he sits in
Right
front
in
of
front.
us. The theater is almost completely empty. He sits in front of us. Now, let me tell you something. If a theater is full, I get it. Would you ever sit in front of somebody in a half empty theater? It wasn't
Only if I
sightseeing.
secretly listened to their podcast and wanted to piss them off.
So you know what we did? I was so angry. That we got up and we sat in front of him.
Oh, good.
Because it was like leapfrog. Because I'm like, who does that? What? It's a matter of etiquette. It's a matter of ethics. It's like you don't sit in front of people in a movie theater. You sit.
Attention
2 rows
must
in
be
front.
paid.
You sit 2 rows in front. I mean, it's like plus those seats are tight, so it's like I got this guy's head right in front of me, and I'm just like I want to hit him. I was so angry.
Drawing a
Like, who
line in the
does that?
sand, man.
It was like I just couldn't understand how you couldn't, like, when you walk in there, I'm going to sit there. I mean, like, there are great seats in the middle, and there's nothing but seats on our side of the theater. So why do you sit in front of us? It's like, are you that anxious to hear our conversation? It's not that interesting. So angry.
Unless you're listening to the 4:30 movie.
Yeah,
That's
I
right.
was so. Because I would never do that. It's like in a restaurant where they seat you. They say, "Oh, would you, and it's like the restaurant could be empty, and they put you at the table next to the other
next
people,
to someone else. Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'd rather be over there. I don't want to be next to these people. Can I be a little further away until the restaurant fills, since you're empty? Like I understand there's sections. I understand there's sections for the different, waiters, but I'm not asking to be on the other side of the restaurant. I'm just looking not to be next to the person that is in the empty restaurant where there's just two tables right next to each other. I hate that. Why do they do that?
Obviously, it's because the world wants to screw with you.
That's right.
Clearly,
It's
there's
personal.
some serious problems that I think at the Cinematheque, it's where cinephiles go, right? The cinephile should
Cinephiles.
know you don't sit in front of another person unless you have to. It's just I just didn't get it. I couldn't.
This is
And he
what
was by
happened.
himself. Like he could have sat anywhere.
Is
So
this
he
your
chose to
homework?
sit in front of us.
Yeah.
What?
Just all of a sudden, I was feeling like a John Goodman rant from The Big Lebowski coming on from you.
No, I'm just saying. I don't think I'm being unreasonable. I think you at home would probably agree with me, most of you.
Oh,
So
I
why
totally
would-
look. I'm right there with you on the getting up and going and sitting in front of him.
Yeah,
I think
because
that was the right move.
Isaac's like, "What should we do?" I said, "Oh, I know what we're going to do. We're going to sit in front of this
oh.
asshole. That's what we're going to do." And it's like, I'm not going to have my enjoyment ruined. Plus, I like to cross my legs during it, and I got food that I'm eating. We got the bunch of cruncher and the water and the popcorn, and I need
just
room.
lean
And
forward
I
and
need
crunch
breathing
in his
room.
ear.
And
Won't be ignored.
1938.
just so angry. Anyway, but it was great. Bonnie and Clyde. Oh, and he loved it. I don't think I'd ever
Wait,
seen
the
it
guy
in
in front of you or Isaac?
I have no idea what the guy. Well, he was the guy back of us, but
The guy behind you.
But
He liked it a little too much.
But no, it's. I forgot how great that movie is. Oh, so good.
She's
So
beautiful.
good. Oh, Faye Dunaway. I said to him, this is the absolute most beautiful she ever looked, and that's like just like one of the most beautiful women in the history of cinema. I mean, in Bonnie and Clyde. Oh,
That voice.
she's gorgeous. She's so great. She's so great. And of course, Gene Hackman is so brilliant in it. Clyde, and Estelle Parsons. But I forgot about Gene Wilder. And oh my God, he's in it for like 5 minutes, but man, he steals that movie. I'm gonna tear him apart. And it's just,
And of
he's
course,
so
the Star Trek connection, Michael J. Pollard.
right. Of course, I immediately explained that to Isaac. I said, Michael J. Pollard. You remember what he was in? He goes, I don't. I go, Miri. He goes, oh yeah, that's right. It's like, yeah. I said, yeah. He was causing all kinds of trouble for Captain Kirk.
That's right.
And Miri. Yeah, and he's
Yeah,
causing all
stinker.
kinds of trouble for banks, for all those banks
Yeah.
that they were robbing. Such a great movie. Oh my God! Thank God that Pauline Kael saved that from oblivion.
Yep.
And it's just amazing, Jack Warner just hated it so much. It's such a great movie. I mean, that really is like the pivot, to the new Hollywood. And man, it's just, I just, the days of movies when they really mattered. I miss that. Because boy, Minecraft, I haven't seen it, but did you go? Did the kids make you go?
No, the kids went with their mother. I stayed at home and worked.
Isaac, to his credit, said, I'm going to go with my friends. I'm not going to make you do this, Dad. I'm like,
that's-
thank you. I appreciate it. That's very considerate.
of him.
So he did. He went with his friends. And I was spared.
Kaden did the same. The little ones went with their mom.
Little one.
Nice.
The little
Nice.
ones.
Anybody watching Pluto lately? Any interesting episodes they've come across?
Well, they keep running the what's the TNG episode with the Crawley?
The survivors.
No.
Conspiracy?
Conspiracy Part 2.
Conspiracy Part 2.
Part
There's only
2.
one episode.
No, that's the one where they make the little Crawley thing an acting ensign. Nah, that's a joke. It's a joke. It's just a joke.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I it's funny because
Really
I like to go through and unfortunately, like yesterday, I was just going to throw it on for a second, and the pale moonlight was on.
Oh man.
Oh damn it! And of course, I had to sit and watch the whole thing. Ruined my whole evening.
Of course you did.
Oh well.
Yeah.
And
I
all it
still
costs
don't
you-
understand why they split Next Generation and TOS on the same channel. Like Voyager, they do constant. Deep Space Nine, they do constant, but Star Trek, the original series, has to share with Next Gen.
Yeah, because they want to keep that channel for the old people.
What?
You know.
I don't know about that. I think they should do it with Enterprise or something, because those shows have less episodes. So you could do that. You could do Star
They
Trek
don't
and
run
Enterprise.
do they?
No, they don't.
Well,
Oh, there you go.
there you go.
There's your
But they
explanation.
could. Then they could have a fourth Star Trek channel.
They don't want
A
any more.
fourth. There
Now,
are
four
four Star
channels.
Trek channels.
You know what I like to throw on occasionally? I like to throw on that Mission Impossible channel.
I love it. I love it so freaking much.
Yeah. It's amazing. Any time of day, you could just throw it on. You know what I had on the other day? You know, I'm starting to watch. I started to watch Reacher on Amazon Prime, which I'm enjoying.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the first season. The second season, not so much. But they have like an '80s music video channel on Amazon, and so it's like watching MTV or Friday Night Videos. And so, like at 1 a.m, I'll turn it on, and it's so entertaining to watch old music videos from like '84 and '85 and everything.
It was super entertaining at the time.
Is Reacher leading you a merry chase, Mr. Sulu? Reacher.
You finished White Lotus, Darren?
I did.
Yeah. What'd you think?
Yeah.
Oh, see, you know, it's funny because I feel it's all about like just enjoying the ride, like for
I
what
didn't
it
enjoy the
is.
ride.
You know, I think there could be a White Lotus on Ryza. You could do White Lotus on Ryza. I'd watch that.
You'd get a rise out of that.
Oh my god.
Oh my God. On that note, we should introduce this week's episode. So we were lucky enough to sit down with the great ALAN RUCK. ALAN RUCK, you know, obviously listeners to this podcast know him as the befuddled Captain Harriman from Star Trek Generations. But of course, he was the great Emmy-nominated Connor Roy in Succession. He was sensational in Succession. He was also in Speed. He was in... what are some of the other movies that he did? Beloved for his role in where I think we all discovered him in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Yeah. He's been in a ton of stuff. When you look, he's really been in a lot of great movies, a lot of great TV shows. You brought up I brought up a show which we didn't talk about on the panel, but I mentioned to him, I don't know if it was me or someone, but we started talking about Persons Unknown, which was this short-lived prisoner wannabe that he was in. He was really good, and it was a good show, and it never it was created by Chris McQuarrie of all people, and it never resolved because it didn't get renewed. But he had some great stories about that, but that was not on the panel. That was after the panel. So sorry, you're out of luck. So I guess the guy who said we jumped the shark, well, you know, that's a story you can't hear because you know, we didn't record it.
You may be right.
I bet you wish you knew what that story was now.
Yeah, but you're just not going to find out.
You're not going to know.
But it was an absolutely great time
here.
at Galaxycon Richmond. 4 days, the ultimate festival of fandom. We got a bunch more Galaxycons coming up this year. We'll be in Oklahoma City on May 23rd to the 25th. Guests include our captain, my captain, William Shatner, Giancarlo Esposito, or Darren, how do you say it?
Esposito. Giancarlo Esposito.
Thank you. Carrie Elways, Jason Isaacs, who was also in that. He could be in the Star Trek White Lotus.
Yeah, that's right. I like
but
that
is he
guy.
from the Mirror Riser? I don't know. And then
One of the few interesting characters on that show.
And Lou Ferrigno's going to be in. I bet we'd like him when he's
That's
angry. When he's
awesome.
not angry, it's going to be great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of great guests at that. And then if that's not enough, it's going to be a plethora of Star Trek guests.
I don't think that word means what you think it means.
At GalaxyCon New Orleans.
Nolans.
Boy, we're going to have some good meals there, aren't we?
Damn right we are.
July 11th to 13th.
Saving my shekels.
We'll take recommendations, by the way. If you guys out there are big Louisiana foodies, we'd love to hear your recommendations. LeVar's going to be there. LeVar Burton.
Nice.
Gates McFadden, our good friend Gates. John Delancey will be there.
Great.
And Armin, another one of our favorite
Lovely.
dinner companions.
Armen Bashir.
Nana, visitor, will be there talking about her book. And we really need to talk to her about her book. We haven't had her on
totally
to
do.
talk about her book.
Yeah.
So we need to do that. Maybe we'll do a panel with her about the book, and then we'll put it on the show.
we
Sorry,
need
Jump
to.
the Shark guy. And see, that's the thing. If we did it without recording it at the panel, then we'd be repeating ourselves. We don't want to do that. So anyway.
We will not repeat.
We will
And
not
of
repeat.
course, the luminous and one of our favorite people in the whole world, Terry Farrell, will be there. So it's really, you don't want to miss Galaxycon
awesome.
New Orleans, July 11th to 13th. And of course, Darren will be jetting his way to Galaxycon Raleigh, July 24th to the 27th. And Ashley will be at San Jose Galaxycon August 15th to 17th. So a lot of great ways to see the Treksperts. We hope you'll see us at one or all of these shows. If it's
Just
not,
try
you can-
one though, because
Yeah.
we don't want to see it multiple.
Sample.
Yes, we do. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you do. You wanna try
I'm
them all.
speaking for Mark.
Collect them all.
Yeah, exactly. You look, it's
We
fun
love to
because
see you.
You could go to Raleigh and see Darren. You go to San Jose and see Ashley.
Yeah.
And that's
Go to
really
New
what
Orleans
it
and
is.
see all of us.
That's
You
right.
go to New Orleans and see all of us at a distance, hopefully.
At a distance.
Oh my God!
And,
Wow, that's a deep cut. That's a Frakes cut.
anyway, we're thrilled to share with you this great conversation with Alan Ruck. A lot of great stories. We hope you relish it as much as we do. And we'll be back with Alan Ruck after these brief commercial messages, and then the three of us will be back with a few closing thoughts after that. So stay tuned.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
That's your money saying it's time for a McDonald's run. Because with new McValue at McDonald's, you get more than you expect. Like buy a 6-piece McNuggets and add a McChicken for just $1. Your money says let's go. Get more than you expect with new McValue. Prices and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value.
Building a portfolio with Fidelity Basket Portfolios is kind of like making a sandwich. It's as simple as picking your stocks and ETFs, sort of like your meats and other toppings, and managing it as one big, juicy investment. Now that's pretty good. Learn more at fidelity.com/baskets. Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
Vitamin Water was born in New York because New Yorkers wanted more. Like more flavor to go with all the flavor. A refreshing drink after climbing 6 flights of stairs to a walk-up apartment, or standing in the subway station in 100-degree heat. Focus when I have an 8-hour shift, and Triple X after I was out all night at a club. Call Triple X. Drink vitamin water. It's from New York.
Welcome to another Galaxycon. I'm Mark Altman, showrunner Pandora, writer producer of Librarians. I'm here with my fellow Treksperts, Ashley Miller, writer of X-Men First Class and Thor, and the associate producer.
Hello.
of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, Director's Edition, Mr. Daren Dochterman. And if this panel hits 55, it's going to blow up, so we better keep it down a little bit. So we're just waiting for our guest to arrive. And while we're doing that, let's talk about our favorite Alan Ruck movies. Ashley, what's your favorite Alan Ruck movie?
I mean, come on, isn't this the gimme? Like, it's got to be Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right? I mean, it's really his movie.
Which makes it extremely appropriate to just say, FRYE. FRYE. Has anyone seen Cameron Fry?
I swear I heard somebody say no outside.
Well, you know, maybe we should just get Abe Froman up here at this rate.
The Sausage King of Chicago?
The Sausage King of Chicago. But, okay, so obviously Ferris Bueller, great choice. What about you, Darren?
I like him in Speed.
Great in Speed. Great choice. Amazing. Remember when when Speed first came out, everybody said Keanu Reeves in an action film?
Right?
What?
That sounds stupid. Yeah,
Nobody's
going
to see that.
You were all wrong.
I think we were all guilty of thinking that. Yeah.
Yeah, who knew that Keanu Reeves would become America's sweetheart? But
Now, I know you think I would say Star Trek Generations, but I'm not going to say that because, as we know, I'm not a fan of Star Trek Generations. But
Is there anyone a fan of Star Trek Generations on here?
I like the little crawling insect thing that's happening down there in the front row, sir.
What's going on there?
I kind of like it.
well, we all know now
creeps
that
across
time
my
is
skin.
the fire in which we burn.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go.
And you can get some cream for that, apparently, which is good.
I'm not going to go with a feature. I'm going to go with TV series, and I'd have to say I just think he was absolutely brilliant in Succession.
Absolutely, totally. And you know what else he was great in? The Exorcist.
Yeah, The Exorcist, which was
He's fantastic.
Which is a show that doesn't get enough love
Absolutely, but it should get more.
because people would say, "How did they make a TV show out of The Exorcist?" Which was Fox, and wasn't the showrunner was
Sean Crouch, our
yeah,
buddy.
and did just a great job with that.
From what I'm told, he's here.
He's here.
We are so delighted to welcome, running on stage, but under 55 miles an hour, it's none other than the great Alan Ruck. Alan, come and join us.
Welcome.
Hello, sir. Good to see you again.
Hello.
So we were just talking about our favorite Alan Ruck performances.
Oh.
So can you guess what they were?
No, I'm going to let you lay it on me.
Okay.
They're all pretty much the same to me.
Well, we started, obviously, with Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Okay.
If that's okay.
If that's all right with
Yeah,
you.
I'm here.
If you're not sick of that
At
by
your
now.
behest, I'm here.
And I mentioned Speed, which is fun.
Yes, good
It's
movie.
a little fast for me, but
Yeah.
And I told them to ruck off. It had to be Succession. Connor
look at
Roy,
you.
brilliant. So, but we're so glad to have you here. Obviously, going back, the film where we sort of first discovered you was Ferris Bueller.
Hello?
Cameron, babe, what's happening?
Very little.
How do you feel?
Shredded.
Is your mother in the room?
She's in Decatur. Unfortunately, she's not staying. Where are you?
I'm taking the day off. Now get dressed and come on over.
You can't, stupid. I'm sick.
That's all in your head. Come on over.
I feel like complete shit, Ferris. I can't go anywhere.
I'm sorry to hear that. Now come on over here and pick me up.
I'm dying.
You're not dying. You just can't think of anything good to do.
Do you remember sort of, auditioning for John and sort of how that movie came to you and your expectations at the time? Certainly, you couldn't imagine 40 years later we'd still be talking about it with such reverence.
No, really. It never occurred to me at the time. I actually started acting in Chicago. I went to the University of Illinois, and I went right up to Chicago after school because I didn't know anybody in LA or New York. And I knew a lot of people doing plays in Chicago. And during that time, I met John Hughes because he was going to make The Breakfast Club as a little indie. Right? And so I went in and I read for the Bender part, which is, I wasn't going to get that anyway, but I read for him. And so I met John. And then he met Molly Ringwald during that process, and he put The Breakfast Club on the back burner, and he wrote 16 Candles for her in a weekend. He was really, really fast, a very fast writer. And so then life moved on, and I went to New York to do Biloxi Blues, the Neil Simon show, and I met Matthew. We worked together for about, over 6 months, and then he was offered Ferris Bueller. And my agent at the time in New York tried to get me on audition. And the casting people said, "Look, we know how old he is," because I was 28 years old at the time, and they said, my agent said, "He plays opposite Matthew every night on stage, and I look like they're the same age. Just read him." So I went in, I auditioned for the casting directors, and they were like, "Yeah, no, he's good." And then my callback was for John with Matthew. And so many times in the movies, you show up on the first day of work, and it's like, "We're brothers." You know, it's like, "This is your brother, go." Or it's like, "This is your wife." You know, just instant relationship. Matthew and I didn't have to mess around with that. We were already friends, you know, so we had that going for us, and everything just fell into place. Originally, John had offered that movie to Anthony Michael Hall and to Emilio Estevez. And they were both, they had done a few movies with John, and they were ready to move on. I can't remember what, he actually goes by Mike, Anthony Michael Hall. I can't remember what he was doing, but Emilio was doing Repo Man. Right. And he was kind of moving into adult roles, and, you know. So every time I see Emilio, I want to give him a kiss on the head just for turning that down. But that's how that came about.
I can't imagine two different directors than Alex Cox and John Hughes.
No. Yeah, very exciting. Yeah,
so
an interesting discussion would be.
You were doing a lot of theater at the time. How was the transition to film acting for you? Because obviously acting for the stage is very different than being doing film. How hard was it for you to make that step?
The first movie I ever did was called Bad Boys with Sean Penn, sure. And my performance in that movie is so big you can see it from the surface of the moon. You know, and it took me a while to understand that sometimes you just need to sit still and breathe and think, and the camera does a lot of the work for you. So I learned, I took some lumps. I did that movie, and then I did another one called Class with Rob Lowe and Johnny Cusack and some people. And
Jacqueline Bisset.
Oh, yeah, and Cliff Robertson. So I was kind of like, you know, the apprenticeship of Alan Ruck. And I took some lumps, and I saw myself on the screen. I was like, that was really bad. And so little by little, I kind of got it together. So by the time we did Ferris, I felt like I knew what I was doing. I feel like I'm sitting
it showed.
Back.
Would you have, you know, all the world's stage here?
So. I want to be able to look at you guys.
I'm sorry.
No, good.
We're sorry that you have to look at us, actually, is the issue.
I just have to say, I think you guys were shooting Ferris Bueller in the same time and same area where I was just finishing high school. So I got out of high school in '85.
Okay, yeah.
And so when that came out, it was a sort of a direct connection to my school days. And it because it's the same area, it was just so representative of how that life was. And that was an amazing thing to see how John Hughes sort of captured the feeling of being in high school in Illinois, basically.
I think that was his particular genius. He really had a feeling for young people. And I mean, I remember going into record shops with him when we were just rehearsing before we started shooting. And they all knew him, and everybody knew him.
Because he would buy these records to play while he was writing the script.
Exactly. Yeah. And he was up on all the bands. I didn't know anything. I didn't know who was, you know, like current. He knew everything. He was really, he kind of never grew up that way. Yeah. You know, he just kind of stayed in that zone. And that was part of his gift, that he treated young people like fully formed human beings, even though we're not. 17, 18 years old, but he honored their hopes and dreams and their struggles, and didn't he didn't talk down to kids, you know. He just let it all breathe. And that's why a lot of teen comedies since forever have just, they don't age well, because they're so time specific. And, you know, it's like making fun of kids, you know, all the obsessions with sex and status and everything. And some of those things are in John's films, but he really treats them like complete human beings, these kids. And I think that's why they last.
Well, the other thing I think he does that's different is he treats the adults like real human beings too. I mean, there are jerks in those movies for sure, but then there are adult characters who have depth and reality.
Yeah.
Which I think is one of those things that, again, you know, when you're talking about a John Hughes film, you go, oh, right. Like, that's why something like The Breakfast Club persists, even though culturally it's out of sync.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he was an excellent writer and fast. He wrote Bueller in a week.
Wow.
So he just, he once said, remember when you were in high school and you read Walden Pond and you were supposed to keep a journal? He said, I never stopped doing that.
Wow.
And apparently his sons have all these moleskin notebooks that he would carry with him constantly, and he'd see something, get an idea, and he'd write it down. And apparently his writing is about like this, you know, so he's really filling pages with lots of ideas.
It's almost psychotic, actually.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's an obsession, you know.
Yeah. I got to work with him for a couple months when he was producing the remake of Absent-Minded Professor in Chicago. And that was such an amazing sort of connection, because he was just sort of free-forming and just trying to figure out what he wanted to do. Yeah. And it was so fascinating to watch how his process was going. And I'm so sad we lost him so early, because it was unbelievably sudden.
Yeah, I mean, I think he had stopped smoking a long while before he died, but when I was working with him, he smoked 5 packs a day.
Yeah.
So, and of Carltons. Remember those?
Yeah. The unkindest cut of all.
There's no tobacco in them. They're paper and chemicals. That's all in. So he wasn't doing himself any favors.
What was the acting process like with him? I mean, as a director, I mean, obviously different directors have different styles. There are guys who basically have set up a shot and then you're on your own. There are guys who will sit and have long conversations with you about who you are in the scene and what you want. Like, what was your relationship like with him as an actor? How did that translate onto the screen?
It was pretty easy. I found that the better the writers are, the less messed up they get if you change the wording, you know, if you extemporize or if you know, there's some writers that they want you basically to take their pages and frame them and put them on the wall.
Right.
And you know, and I can't write, I'm not a writer, so, and without the writers we have nothing. You know, it takes somebody sitting down in front of a typewriter or an iPad or a legal pad and just imagining a world and putting it on where we can all see it. But I found that the better the writers are, the more they want you to kind of improvise and extemporize and maybe, you know, put it in your own words. It's whatever works,
right.
You know. And so John was very good that way. And the way we shot Bueller was pretty much the same way we shot Succession, and that's we would do it as written, several takes, and then they would come up with alternate lines. And John did that. And then in Succession, they would have pages, especially for somebody like Kieran, pages of alternate lines. We got that one. That's in the can. Do you want to try this? And you want to try all of them, you know, because they're all so good. But you'd pick out a couple. And then my favorite director on Succession was Mark Mylod, and he would always say, okay, guys, freebie. And that was the last take. Wow. And it was like whatever came out of your mouth. And sometimes it was crap, you know, but sometimes every now and then somebody would just take a left turn, and if you just hung with them, you might get something, you know. And because you have the framework of the scene in your DNA by that point. You've done it half a dozen times, 10 times. So by the time you get to that last just improvised take, the bones of the scene are in you, and it just, whatever happens, happens, and it's a really fun way to work.
And if the machine is rolling, you want to embrace those accidents and try and make them happen.
It's just whatever life you can capture is maybe, happy accidents are maybe better than anything you can imagine,
Well, since you mentioned Succession.
Okay, just so you know, I want Willett in this. So. Okay, is that appropriate?
Connor.
Oh no, that's fine. It is appropriate. Okay, but is it appropriate? It's not going to be problematic? No, it won't be problematic.
Connor, come here. Will is a call girl.
Not anymore.
Me and sometime that might come out and hurt my profile or Tom's profile, and I want to be horrible, but come on, you get it, right?
Okay, I get it. But if you don't allow it, I'm gonna punch Tom in the face, and I'm gonna rip my shirt open, I'm gonna take a fucking dump on the ground, I'm gonna go apeshit because she's the woman I love. Do you get it? You're in.
Okay, is that everyone? Yeah.
Rava!
Robert, come on, get in.
Cannot we? Rava, come.
Yeah, go on. Get right in there. Okay, is that everyone? Roman, I'll take that one, but can we do a serious one for the parents?
Yeah.
Is that?
Roman,
do
a serious
Yeah. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
And I want to ask you about, I mean, you play a character that you have to play with utter conviction, and yet, you know, to the outside world, to us watching, he's kind of a putz, no offense, right?
No.
Yeah. So,
you know that he's not actually the character.
And so, you know, obviously you want to approach it as with complete conviction. You know, you don't condescend to the character. He's authentic. Can you sort of talk about that process of sort of getting the role and then finding that character? Because some of the most memorable quotes from that series are Connor's, and some of the long diatribes that he goes off on, and then ultimately running for president and the relationship with Willa. I mean, it's just utterly fascinating.
If left to my own devices, I will always screw things up. The play that I did with Matthew in New York, Biloxi Blues, I was in Chicago, and they said, they want you to go to New York to audition for Neil Simon. I said, I'm not going to go. And my agent said, what are you talking about? I said, you've sent me to New York 3 times to audition for stuff, and every time I've spent $300 or whatever it was in 1984, you know, to fly People's Express, and then I don't get the job and I'm out the $300. And so she called Manny Eisenberg, the producer, and said, Alan he wants you to fly him. And Manny said, I tell you what, he said, if he doesn't get the job, I'll reimburse him for his airfare. And so my joke is, I don't know if they really wanted me or just Manny didn't want to pay the $300. You know? But with Succession, I was working on this thing in Chicago with Gina Davis. It was the TV version of The Exorcist. And I would fly home for long weekends. And my wife is an actor. She's very good. Her name is Mireille Enos. And she was doing this glamour show, this eyelash show called The Catch. And they were working like 15 and 16-hour days. It was brutal. And we had a nanny, but, you know, she would come home and she was mom, you know. And she was played out. She was worn out. I came home this one weekend, going to go back home on Monday, and she said, on Monday morning, come to Mommy and Me music class with me and the baby. And I said, I'm there. And then Monday morning, my manager calls up and says, hey, I got an audition for you for an HBO show. And I said, honey, it's HBO. And she bursts into tears. Like, they popped out of her eye. And I said, Mark, I'm sorry, I can't go. I promised my wife that I'd do something else. And so we go to the music class, and you have to leave your phone outside, and you bang tambourines for an hour, you know. And then I came out, and my phone had exploded with, like, go to, oh, God, I'm having a senior moment. I just forgot his name. Adam McKay's house. Before you fly to Chicago, go to Adam's house, because they want to see you. So I went to his house, and I said, Adam, I really don't know the material. And he said, make it up. He said, you know the situation, right? I said, yeah. He said, just make it up. So I just started improvising with the casting director, and then by the time I landed in Chicago a couple hours later, they told me they wanted me to do the job. So it's just, so it just takes, apparently, it takes a lot of people to put Alan in the right place, you know, to get things done. But
did Adam McKay pay for your flight?
But with the whole thing with him, it said in the little, you know, email I got from the agency, it said, this part will grow over time. Not in line to succeed in the corporation, but part will grow over time. I'm great, you know. And then during the audition, there was this line that said, Dad, there's this job I want. It's called President of the United States. And I looked at Adam McKay and I said, so he's putting the old man on, right? And he's like, oh no. He's deadly serious. And then I knew who this guy was, you know, because you're given all these inane things to say, and you're like, who says that kind of stuff? So it was clear that this boy was damaged, you know, and old enough. And, you know, something that happens in these dynastic families is if you are not perfect, you kind of get pushed to the back of the family photo. You know what I mean? And so clearly he was on the spectrum somewhere, and ADHD, all that stuff was going on with Connor. All kinds of not narcissism specifically, but what do they call that? It's on the same level as schizophrenia, delusional disorder. Clearly, this boy was damaged, you know. And some of those families, they're just like, no, he's fine, you know, he's fine. And they didn't really address the problem. And there were all the things that happened with Connor's mother. She was in and out of mental institutions. She had a pill problem, an alcohol problem. So you just got the feeling with this kid that his father divorced the mother when he was maybe like 8 years old, and then he was either living at home with his really challenged mom, or he was at boarding school. So that's a lonely, lonely life. And so he just figured that this guy, there was always money. There was never any love, but there was always money. So he created his own world from the time he was very young, and the money was there to do it. So you wind up with a person who's in his 50s, who's never worked a job, who's never had to show up, nobody's ever had to count on him for anything. He's lost, you know, and that was me.
Did you take everything off the page, or did you do research on like the Murdochs and a lot of families like this and people of great wealth and how they lived their lives, or you read any biographies, or was it all just strictly off the page and from like Mark?
It was pretty much off the page. I read a little bit about the Murdoch family, and who's the eldest daughter? What's her name? She's got a very strange name like Prunella.
The one you never hear about.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was the Connor of that family, you know. Not interested in the business, or if she was incapable of sort of operating on that level. But mostly I just took it from what Jesse and the writers gave us, because it was pretty clear.
And when the show, did you ever expect it to become this cultural phenomenon that it became? I mean, with all the Emmys, with all the attention that was lavished on it, you know, and of course, living this kind of lavish lifestyle, the way that the network treats you when they're sending you to all the events, but these incredible houses you filmed in, all these cars, and then it ends, and it's what was that experience like for you?
Well, I enjoy the doing of it. I generally don't watch myself. I did watch Succession just because it was so good and everybody was so wonderful. But I love the doing of it. I like being on set. I like it's kind of like playing a sport, because you don't know exactly what's going to happen. It's very exciting, you know. So it's a wonderful job. It really is. While we were doing it, the first season, I knew we did the pilot, and then we didn't start filming until almost a year later, for different reasons. But while we were doing it, I just knew it was excellent. And then when we premiered, half of the critics said, "These people are awful. There's nobody to root for. I don't want to spend any time with these people. I feel like I need to take a shower." Whatever, and all that stuff is true, you know. But I have never had a problem with watching shows about disgusting people, because if we were making a show about the Nazis, hopefully we wouldn't be rooting for anybody, you know. Oh, that Himmler, if only he'd made better choices, you know. I mean, you know. So I didn't kind of understand that. And then by about the middle of the season, about the 5th or 6th episode, the same critics are like, "Wow, Succession has really found its voice." It's like, no, you just caught up. We knew what we were doing from the beginning. And they, you know, it's a group of completely miserable human beings. They have every reason to be happy, everything they could ever imagine, and they're just awful. They're just awful. And so that was fun. It's just fun to play some, you know, despicable people.
And there was that odd debate whether it was a comedy or a drama. Clearly it was a drama, but with comedy like life.
Yeah,
but
well, it's so funny that we have these categories. It's like comedy, drama. I mean, no, there's no TV shows that we call tragedies, you know. I mean, but yeah, there's a lot of these things now, like The Bear. The Bear is considered to be a comedy in all the award categories. It's a pretty serious show, you know. It's just a half-hour format, so it's not the typical dramatic format. But I think there's a lot of these shows now that they call them dramedies. Like you say, I just think they just call it life, you know, because it's mixed up like our lives are.
Now, our podcast is called The Inglorious Treksperts, so we talk about Star Trek a lot. I've been told that you were a starship captain.
Captain Kirk, I would appreciate any suggestions you might have.
First, move us within transporter range. Beam those people aboard the Enterprise.
What about the gravimetric distortions? They'll tear us apart.
Risk is part of the game. You want to sit in that chair.
Helm, close to within transporter range.
Second, turn that damn thing off.
We're within range, sir.
Beam them directly to sickbay.
Aye, sir. How big is your medical staff?
The medical staff doesn't arrive till Tuesday.
For one brief shining moment.
Was it that shining?
Well, it was shiny just because, you know, Star Trek is shiny.
Yeah.
But, it was a shiny ship that didn't work.
Till Tuesday.
But
how did that come to you? I mean, it's funny. We talked about John Hughes. Ironically, John Hughes actually had written a Star Trek treatment for Paramount back in his Nate and Hayes days. He wrote a sequel to Star Trek II about Khan that never got made. And then, you know, so there is a lineage. And then how did Star Trek come to you with Generations? Was it strictly an audition? Was it an offer situation? Did you think, you know, I'm going in to play, you know, Captain Kirk Mark II, and then you find out this is a guy who's kind of screwing things up? And
this is back in the 90s, so we still had fax machines. And my agent called and said, I have an audition for you for a Star Trek picture. Great. So the pages come through the fax machine, and I was like, who am I supposed to audition for? Harriman. And I thought they'd, you know, have me audition for some like alien with broccoli coming out of his head, or, you know, I didn't think, because I just don't consider myself to be Starship Commander material. When I used to shave and look in the mirror, I just didn't say Starship Commander, baby. So I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And I went in. The audition went very well. The director is a guy named David Carson, really talented British guy. And the audition went well, and he said, well, hello, Alan Ruck. And I said, well, great. And then they say they want me to do the part. So then I had to make up kind of a backstory in my mind. It's like, how would a guy who's clearly unqualified for this position get the position? And I thought, well, there's human beings involved, so that means there's the possibility of corruption. And I figured I came from a wealthy family, and this was kind of purchased for me in one way or another as a stepping stone in a political career. And it was, you know, that whole gig was supposed to be take the Enterprise B, like go around Pluto, and we'll have cocktails,
right?
And you know, we'll do some, we'll have some photo ops, and that was it.
So it's basically Matthew Broderick in Glory.
Well, kind of, yeah.
or it's like Succession. Instead of saying, Dad, I want this job, President of the United States. Dad, I want this job, Starship Captain.
Yeah, exactly. And look, they sent. I mean, you know, he didn't have a clue, but they sent him out with a half-assed ship. Yeah. I mean, nothing worked. Nothing worked. You know, and so it was. You know, obviously, as a plot device to launch Captain Kirk into his last glorious battle. And half of the Star Trek community hate me for killing Kirk, and the other half adore me for killing Kirk.
Was it fun to do?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'm old enough that I was a little boy when the show came on the air, and I was a huge fan of the show. You know, I think I was in the 5th grade or 6th grade, and so Harriman was supposed to be starstruck by, you know, Scotty and Chekhov and Kirk. I didn't have to act, you know, because that was me.
Did they let you keep the uniform?
No, and I didn't want it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It was itchy.
Ah, yeah.
I didn't hear.
We can get you one in the hall.
I'm good.
Thank you. You know, a lot of people, they grow up, you know, wanting to be, they dream of stardom, and you've had a very, very successful career as a character actor, which has allowed you to do so much, moving from Succession and all these different things. But I mean, when you look at something like Speed, it's so interesting to look at somebody like Keanu, who we were talking about, you know, he's going to star in an action movie for 20th Century Fox. It's like, Keanu? You know, this light comedian stoner guy, you know, even in Dangerous Liaisons, he was the only one who got terrible reviews, right? So, and then he's terrific, and you have a wonderful role in that film. Tell us a little bit about doing Speed and working with the crazy Jean Bavant. Yeah.
The movie, not just doing Speed.
I missed what he said.
He said, "Tell us something about doing Speed," and I said, "The movie."
Oh. Thank you. Thank you for repeating things for an elderly gentleman. So Speed was great because the 105 freeway had just been completed in Los Angeles.
But not opened
Not
yet.
opened. So that was our backlot. So we had, I don't know how many miles of freeway. That was our backlot. And we had at least half a dozen different buses. And one that we used a lot, Sandy had a dummy wheel that didn't do anything, and the driver actually sat on the roof. They had it rigged. So his name was Gil. I can't remember his last name, but he was the stunt driver up on the roof. And Keanu he's one of the good guys of show business. I mean, he's really like, you hear about these things that he does. He's just like, he finds out somebody needs money and he writes him a check for $10,000. I mean, he's just, that's who he is. And he's quiet and he's unassuming, but he's very physically capable. And he, just as a young man, he rode a lot of motorcycles, and he's a very athletic dude. So that role was sort of perfect for him at that time. And like you say, it opened a whole world for him because he had, been, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure kind of guy. We had a bus that they called the Pope Mobile, because on the front of the bus they had welded a cage that was covered in plexiglass, and they put 3 cameras up there. And again, the guy was driving on the roof, so that way they could get close-ups of Keanu and Sandy and everybody else like that. The grips on the show were fabricators, and they came up with ingenious ways of turning the handrails in a bus up here like this. They eliminated the top bracket and reinforced the lower bracket, and they turned that into a dolly track. Wow. And they built a custom-made dolly track that they hung a camera from on bungees so they could be up here looking at Sandy and then whip to the back of the bus like this, So there was a lot of innovation going on, the bus was only half the movie, but it was, I guess it was about 6 weeks. Our part of the movie was about 6 weeks. And then we spent on the 105 freeway, and we just had a hell of a good time.
There are a lot of crazy filmmakers like Otto Preminger going back to Otto, and then of course Paul Verhoeven is great in a wonderful way. Jean Bavant has that reputation as being sort of larger than life crazy filmmaker as well. Started as a great DP. What was he like to work with?
Well, this is interesting. So he was this acclaimed director of photography, and then he got this job to direct this movie. And all the crew people were like, one of us made it to the top, So they could not do enough for this guy. And, sometimes he'd be like, no, I operate. No, I'm operating. I shoot this one. I got it, And very hands-on. And I loved him. And then a few years later, Twister came along.
Right.
And he was under a lot of pressure from people like Steven Spielberg and Kathleen Kennedy and different people. There were a lot of people breathing down his neck on this big movie. And he was not his best self on that movie. And they paired him up with a director of photography named Don Burgess. Don is so meticulous that he does his own storyboards. Like there's the storyboards that are done for the movie by the production designer, right? But he would do his own, and he had his own shot list, and he's pretty much plan your work and work your plan. And Jan is like, no, I'm doing it. No, forget that, fuck that. Wait, I'm going to do it, you know.
Yeah.
And there's also something about Jan is that he can't hold a walkie-talkie in his hand without it shorting out. It must be, I swear to God, because we were out in Oklahoma, out in these, you know, like wheat fields that were just like all mud. And they would hand him a walkie-talkie, and it would just stop working. And he would go, fucking hell, shit! And he would throw the thing. And those are worth like $1,000, you know? Yeah. I mean, that was years ago. They're worth more now. Fucking hell, shit! Throw the thing out, and it would go splook in the mud somewhere, you know, and then some poor PA would have to go dig it out and, like, clean it up, you know. I saw him once with one in each hand, and he was like, fuck! 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 You know? So he was under a lot of pressure, and then, you know, he was having a hard time, and then he and Don just did not get along, and so maybe about halfway through the movie, Don quit and took half the crew with him. And so then they hired this guy named Jack Green, and Jack Green had been Clint Eastwood's DP for years and years and years. A wonderful guy, and he brought all his people and finished up the movie, and you know, it made money. It turned out just fine. It was a good picture, and it made all the money back and then some, so it was considered to be a success. But it was a rough go. Oh, and this was the other thing, is everybody, I show up in Oklahoma. We were in this city called Ponca City, Oklahoma, which is like nowhere. I mean, it's right near the border of Kansas, and it's a very tiny, teeny town. And all the other actors are like, you worked with Jan before. What's he like? And I'm like, he's the greatest guy, because I had such a wonderful experience with him. And then he just was terrible. You know, he was really unhappy, and he was in a bad way. And everybody's like, oh yeah, Al, your good buddy Jan. You want to hear what he did today? And I'm like, I'm sorry, you know. That was my experience.
You know, before you got here, we were talking about our favorite Alan Ruck roles, and one of the things Ashley mentioned was Sean Crouch's wonderful show, The Exorcist, which you alluded to earlier, which you were terrific in. And I think people had certain expectations. How do you do a TV version of The Exorcist? And it turned out really well. Do you have a role or a performance or a movie or a play that you did that's like underrated? You know, obviously people want to talk to you about Ferris, and they want to talk to you about now Succession and all this stuff, but is there something you feel like is overlooked in your oeuvre that you're very proud of?
My oeuvre? I didn't know I had an oeuvre. No, not really. I wish I had something clever or interesting to say right now, but not really. I mean, I did a play in 1984 in Chicago called Billy Bishop Goes to War. And I was very proud of that. And I mean, you know, a handful of people saw it in Chicago back then. And it was a one-man show. It was me and a piano player. And I had a great time doing that. And then when I was younger, I always wanted to play Tom in A Glass Menagerie. Mm-hmm. But even though it's a memory play, I'm too old now to do that. But no, I just take things as they come, and there hasn't really been anything that, well, there's a couple things I'm ashamed of, but but only one or two.
Do you sing? Did you ever do any musicals?
I did, but when I was young, I could really sing. My father was a singer, and my sister was a singer, and I never learned to read music, but I had a good ear. So, like in high school choir, they would just play me my part one time, and then I would know it. And I went away to college, and people said, you have a nice voice, you ought to take voice lessons. And I thought it was the dumbest thing I ever heard. It was like, why should I take lessons to learn to do something I already know how to do? You know, a little vain. But so I never did that. And I've been in 2 musicals in my career. I did this very strange musical in Chicago called One Shining Moment, which was, it was like if it was like an R-gang comedy decided to put on a tribute to JFK.
Wow.
I mean, it was really bizarre, but it paid well. And then about 20 years ago, I toured around in The Producers.
Nice.
I did that. But right before that, I had a health scare. Right after 9/11, I had a health scare, and I was intubated.
Right.
And it stretched the living hell out of my vocal cords. Ooh. So they don't meet up anymore. So I can't hit the high notes. So them days is over.
So showboat it is.
No, not yet.
I have to say, the first Neil Simon play I ever saw was Biloxi Blues in New York, and I wish I'd saved the playbill. But what a great what a great play and what a great performance that I loved it back then.
It was fun. I'd been in Chicago and I'd done little pieces in movies and some TV shows and stuff, but mostly did plays. And I just felt like I was in the theater. And then when I got the Broadway show, I was like, oh no, I'm in show business. Right. All of a sudden the stakes were a lot higher. And opening night in New York, we'd gotten huge laughs on the road. We were in Los Angeles and then San Francisco, and the play was in real good shape and big laughs, and it was a lot of fun. And opening night in New York, it was like you could hear crickets. Just a very reserved crowd, tough crowd, whatever. And they were enjoying it. They just weren't very vocal, and we were really shook up, you know. And so at intermission, I was backstage with Matthew and Wayne Rogers. You remember Wayne Rogers from MASH? Yeah, he was one of the investors in that show. And he was backstage and he just looked at us and he said, Matthew, I don't know, if I was you, I don't think I'd go back out there. And then he walks off. And Matthew says,
oh my God,
what does that mean? It was a big break for me. That was the only time I'd ever been offered a job on the spot, and that's, you know, it goes back to my joke about Manny Eisenberg. But I worked very hard on that audition, and I auditioned for Manny and Neil and for Gene Saks, the director, and they said, look, come back after lunch and look at these two scenes and come back after lunch. And I had to sing in that play, and I was very nervous, so I asked them if I could sit down while I sang because my knees were literally knocking. And they said, yeah, sure, whatever. And I sat down and I sang, and then I did another scene. And Gene Saks came up to the stage and he said, I tell you what, just start singing every day and get more comfortable with it, you know, and you'll be all right. And I said, okay. And then I walked off stage, and the casting director said, wait. And she came up to see me in the wings, and she said, did you realize that Gene was offering you the part? And I said, I thought maybe, but I didn't want to make an ass of myself, you know, and overreach. So that was the only time I've been offered a job on the spot.
And it's amazing because those plays are so good, that and Brighton Beach Memoirs, but they don't translate to film. Like the film adaptations of those movies are not very
plays. Good. Yeah, they're definitely plays. Yeah.
Well, I know you guys have a lot of questions, so we have, I think, a mic, so you can come up and ask Alan some questions.
Oh, no, there's children out here, and I've been cussing.
He didn't mean it.
That's par for the course with us, honestly.
Well, he wasn't Succession, so.
There you go.
I have to get down. I can't really see you guys. Hi. Here,
there we go. That's better.
Let's bring it down just a little bit. Yeah.
This is your chance to emote.
You can use mine.
Oh, that's all right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Well, Mr. Rock, it was good seeing you earlier today at the autograph table, and I know you've only done one official Star Trek movie, but you've also done some fan fiction on Star Trek as well, too. And I'm wondering if you feel like maybe your character has been redeemed a bit from that role, and are you interested in doing any other Star Trek fan fiction?
Well, never say never. I don't know where that character goes. To tell you the truth, I don't know what the next step would be in that story. But never say never, you know. And it was fun to do the Of Gods and Men. I got to work with Walter again and Nichelle, who I'd never met before then, and Tim Russ directed that movie. So it was a bunch of good people. But never say never.
Good.
All right.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
That was up in Port Henry, New York.
Yes, it was.
Mm-hmm. I've been there. I directed one of those episodes.
Were you in that old car dealership?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this...
And the horribly hot transporter room upstairs.
Oh, my God. So we filmed this thing I guess it was July, and it was in this old car dealership that had a metal roof. And every time it rained, it sounded like people were dumping barrels of marbles on the roof.
Yeah.
So we had to shut down, and there was no air conditioning. And it was hotter than hell. And then at night, we would go out to our cars between takes to turn on the air conditioning, except there were skunks everywhere.
Yeah.
So this is some of the glamour of show business that I want you to know about. Hi.
I was a big fan of Twister in the 90s. It was one of those that was on TV a lot. So I just wanted to thank you because as a navigator in the car, I was always the person saying, no, trust me, Rabbit is good, Rabbit is wise.
Oh, yeah.
But I was wondering, was Michael Crichton one of those writers who was more precious about his words?
I never met him, so I don't know what that was. And then it seemed to me a lot of different people wrote on that.
Okay.
But I never got to meet him. So that might be true, but I don't know.
And also on that film, you got to work with the great late Philip Seymour Hoffman and Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
Do you have any stories about working with them that you want to share?
Well, it's just that I was talking with somebody earlier. There's some people that have so much life force in them, you know, and then when they pass away, it doesn't really sink in, you know. So that was true with Bill and Phil, that they had so much energy and they had so many great ideas that it's hard to believe that they're not here anymore, you know. The guy that created Spin City with Gary David Goldberg, another one that was just bigger than life. And so I don't think of them as being gone. And I mean, they've been gone for a long time, but I just, no, Philip was funny. The thing about Philip is that he was about this wide. I mean, he had these huge shoulders, right? And so Jan would say, everybody, find the camera. Come on, get in the picture. Let me see your face. Find the camera, you know? And then Phil would come in and just go like this, and two people would go flying. You know, because he's just big and strong. And it was just like, well, oh, Phil's here.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you so much for your picture earlier.
Oh, sure.
So, Ferris Bueller, my favorite work of yours.
Thank you.
What was your favorite line that Cameron said?
I don't know that I had a favorite line. I think the favorite bit that we did was Matthew and I had done Biloxi Blues in New York, and our director, Gene Sachs, was, well, younger than I am now, but I mean, at the time, he was an older guy, and we were always afraid we were going to give him a heart attack because he would get so pissed off at us for screwing around. And he'd say, I don't believe you're soldiers in World War II. God damn it, you know? And Matthew is double jointed. So, and Gene had this one finger that wouldn't straighten out. And Matthew somehow can hold his finger like that. And so Matthew would walk around backstage before the show saying, I don't believe you're soldiers, God damn it, you know? So then on Bueller, Hughes said, I need an authoritarian kind of dad voice, so come up with something. So I didn't tell Matthew what I was going to do until we started shooting. So that was me doing an imitation of Matthew, doing an imitation of Gene Sachs.
Well, I should say you do.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
Hello.
Hi.
I had read somewhere that for the movie Ferris, that for the parade part where he's singing and stuff, that was, you guys did it in a real parade. And
Yeah.
You guys just like came in, just got to the end of it or something, and
Yeah, it was.
I was curious if that was true or not.
It is true. There's a name for that parade. I just always call it the German American Day Parade, but it has like the von Steuben.
Yeah, the von Steuben parade.
Yeah. And so one Saturday was the real parade, and we had our float with Matthew on it, and we would, you know, the cameras were set up, and we would come chugging down the road and get past the cameras and then go around the block and then get back in, you know. And we did that for one whole Saturday. And then the next Saturday, we did all the close-ups of him singing on the float with the girls and all that stuff. and all the little scenes with like Mia and I. We did all that the next Saturday. And then Kenny Ortega was the choreographer and the second unit director, and all those things of like the people dancing like on the scaffolding and all that stuff. He did that over a number of days. So that whole, all the footage for that parade sequence probably took about 4 or 5 days of shooting. Yeah, sure. Hi.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi.
You create all these larger-than-life characters. Which one would you say was the easiest because you're most alike? Please don't say Succession, but...
Well, Kieran, we were halfway through working on Succession, and he said, you know, I don't think they knew who Connor was until you showed up. It's you. That's what Kieran, I said, oh, thanks, buddy. Thank you. Thank you. But I don't know. I don't know who's like me. I don't know. I really can't say. There's little bits of me in everything. I think it's, you use different parts of yourself, you know, but I really couldn't say which is most like me. I don't have enough perspective because I'm stuck in here with the rest of them. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
My pleasure.
This was a lot of fun.
Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast. The NBA playoffs are here, and Michelob Ultra is getting you closer to the game than ever with courtside seats and more. Enter now at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Superior Access Courtside 2024 to 2025 sweepstakes. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Ends on July 1st, 2025. Multiple entry periods. Visit MichelobUltra.com/superior access/courtside for free entry deadlines and official rules. Message and data rates may apply. Void where prohibited.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
Out here, there's no one way of doing things. No unwritten rules, and no shortage of adventure. Because out here, the only requirement is having fun. Bank of America invites kids 6 to 18 to golf with us. For a limited time, sign them up for a free 1-year membership, giving them access to discounted tee times at thousands of courses. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/golf with us. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America. Restrictions apply. See BofA.com/golf with us for complete details. Copyright 2025 Bank of America Corporation.
Okay, we're back. We're back. That was ALAN RUCK. We promised you a good episode. I think we delivered. I hope you agree.
Rooney, pardon my French, but you're an... No, I'm not going to finish that. But
that guy was so fun. He was
great.
so cool, man.
He's great. I went to his table on Sunday, and he was so happy, and he loved the panel that we did with him, and it was just wonderful. And I got to have a selfie with him, and he was awesome.
Yeah, and we could have done that for another hour at least.
Oh, totally. All of these panels we could.
Yeah, it was a great weekend.
You know what? I just realized it totally was. I got to give the guy who said we jumped the shark a little bit of credit. The reason that it brought the impetus, the catalyst for him saying we jumped the shark by putting up these panels was the Bobby Clark episode.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, maybe you're not 100% wrong, because that was not, I wouldn't say it's not our finest moment. You're not exactly seeing us at our best, but
look what we have to work with.
Exactly. Look, we love Bobby. We're glad we could share it. We thought it was an important part of Trek history and part of your Trekication, but yeah, that was not our best show.
We just wanted to do another Gary Lockwood interview, but with someone who didn't remember anything.
But, I gotta say, when we did do the Bobby Clark interview, we knew it was not a great episode, a great thing, and we said to ourselves, okay, we're gonna make the raps, the intro and the outro really entertaining, because we know the episode, the interview itself, he doesn't remember.
It's not great.
He didn't remember a lot, right? Okay,
yeah.
That it wasn't going to be as compelling, maybe, as some other interviews we've done, right? So, we were cognizant of it, and I think we recorded some really great introduction. I think the introduction outros of that episode are really fun. So,
and at least you got his book.
The other thing I'll say about him, just in general, and all of these interviews that we do, and why, to me anyway, just speaking for myself, I'm just a guy, like why they're important to me. is, it doesn't matter if it's Alan Ruck being a delight on stage talking about being Captain Harriman, or if it's Bobby Clark trying to remember what the hell happened on the set of Arena. All of them are a part of a history of a thing that's incredibly
it's the living
ephemeral.
connection. Yes,
That's right. And we are documenting it. We these interviews matter. Like these,
we
what
interview
they say
these
matters
people
less
so
than the
you
fact that
don't
we have
have
it.
to.
That's right. They're a piece of history, and I think that's important. That's why we keep it. That's why we present it.
That's
to you.
why we're aboard her.
Damn right it is.
I actually think what you just said is really true, and I'm glad that you said it, because it is about creating a living history of this franchise. And, in no way are we casting aspersions on Bobby, because the fact of the matter is, we found him utterly fascinating, and we went into it knowing that this is something he spent a day or two on close to 60 years ago, among a career in which he worked on hundreds of movies and TV shows. Why in the world would he remember anything?
Right. And for crying out loud, he's the guy who yelled out, "Festival, festival!"
Yeah. So
that alone.
Yeah. So the challenge for us is just seeing what pearls we can, get out of it as if we dig deep enough, and sometimes you get something really special and sometimes you don't. But it's still not as bad as that episode we did. Never mind. I'm not gonna say. I still know what I think our worst episode is, and I'm not gonna say.
Let's let the listeners decide that.
Yeah.
But this was not it. This was a really good episode. Alan Ruck was awesome.
Yeah,
he was.
He's such a sweetheart, as you said. He was so kind to my sister-in-law, and to everyone he met, and I was just so. He couldn't have been nicer to all of us, and had great stories, and I didn't know what to expect, because you don't necessarily expect a guy who's been nominated for an Emmy, who has had the huge breakout role in Succession, to be back doing conventions, and is he going to be willing to talk about this stuff that he, after Succession, are you willing to talk about maybe some of the more frivolous stuff in your career? But he was game to talk about anything.
Yeah, he was awesome,
including Succession, and I'm really glad, because I could have talked about I could do this all day,
and including the fan film he was in that we bonded over about having to work in the horrifically hot transporter room in the old studios in Ticonderoga.
Right before James moved the studio. Yeah.
Before the dark times.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's about it for us now. But please rate and review Inglorious Treksperts today, wherever you listen to podcasts. And you can subscribe on Spotify at TrekspertsPlus at TrekspertsPlus.com, where you'll get access to bonus episodes, early commercial-free drops of episodes, and much more. Inglorious Treksperts is a production of the Treksperts Podcast Network. Mark A. Altman, Darren Docterman, and Ashley Miller are executive producers. Peter Holmstrom, Brian Mix are producers, and Mark Rivera is our great audio sound mixer. Inglorious Treksperts is copyright 2025 by Treksperts Plus. And don't forget to rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts, or you can mention it on Spotify and YouTube, where we're currently on video.
And on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. That's very important.
Yeah, very important. Very important. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you, Darren.
Welcome.
Because we need that. We need that. People still don't know.
We're changing our names to like, comment, and subscribe.
That's funny. And of course, you can join the conversation at Inglorious Treksperts Discord channel, which the link is in the show notes. So check us out, and don't miss us at one or more of the upcoming Galaxycon shows. We're going to be coming to a city near you, and you can join us in one of our upcoming appearances for the legendary Festival of Fandom, featuring hundreds of guest gaming signings and their legendary
Festival.
Their legendary After Dark shows featuring burlesque superstar Hazel Honeysuckle. And before dark, you can see the Treksperts, where we'll be hosting panels as only the Treksperts can. You can't see us after dark because we're off eating.
We're asleep.
We'll be in Oklahoma City on May 23rd to 25th. We'll be in Des Moines, September 12th to the 14th, and in New Orleans, July 11th to 13th. And of course, Darren, as we mentioned earlier, will be in Raleigh August 15th to July 24th to 27th, and Ashley will be in San Jose August 15th to the 17th. Lots of opportunities to see us live at Galaxycon, and of course, you don't want to miss Star Trek Las Vegas this August 7th through the 10th, where the Trekspert stage will be curating 4 days of awesome Treksperts content. So, however you see us, we hope you'll enjoy it.
That's where we'll be.
That's where we'll be. Wherever you go, there
When
we
you
are.
see us, we're there.
Yeah. So anyway, on that note, we'll see you next Thursday. Until then, keep on trekking. Gloriously, of course. Or next Tuesday, maybe.
See you next Tuesday. What?